Recently, there was an article by Ambassador Khalilzad's wife on New York Times about Afghan women should defend themselves and their rights. When you read that article, the first thing that comes to your mind or you imagine of an Afghan woman is a poor, incapable woman who have just been given whatever, even she doesn't deserve by international community. But listening to you, Mariam Jan, I'm so proud of your analytical skills and the way you present the situation. I may not agree with the context of what you have presented, but I think you are the example of the resilience and the knowledgeable and the capable woman of Afghanistan. I'm so proud of you, so that's a no. But coming about the peace talks, I think there are, since morning I have been listening, including the panel that I moderated. It looks like everything will go normal and that we will have what we have for another maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 years, which in reality, that might not be the case. The case might be, in the worst case scenario, the negative piece. Dr. Spanta very rightfully mentioned in the morning. And in the middle way would be somehow arrangement with Taliban, with inclusion to some level of compromise on our side as Afghans, including women, some level of compromise from Taliban, but we might not have whatever we have now. So on that we have two major challenges from my perspective. One is the division we have. Yes, there is a consensus on peace process. There's a consensus that we want peace. But the modality, the approach for peace, I think is valid, as you rightly say. So the government should, in principle, lead the peace process, but they don't. And it has been influenced by the upcoming elections in July, especially by the government. So what the government, perhaps President Ghani, wants is both peace process to be pursued or led by him, but also he should have the elections, which these two contradict each other. Either we have to have an elections and continue to face the current situation of war, and of course something that the US and perhaps now maybe the politicians in Afghanistan don't agree to that. So I think the government of Afghanistan should come to that some level of compromise. Either, we should have one. He cannot have both. And we should have some level of conclusion and agreement or whatever, the internal consensus on that. That is the critical issue that has stopped him, because he announced clearly in Kabul process that unconditional peace talks with Taliban, right? We remember that. That was July or June, if I remember it correctly, a few months ago. But now he is going against what he has offered to Taliban. And it was interesting because whatever now happens in Afghanistan, even if Taliban don't take the responsibility, the government points finger to them, including the attack that happened last Thursday in remembrance of Shahid Mazari. The government spokesperson came and said, this is what Taliban terrorists did, while the responsibility was taken by ISIS. So it's like now in a revenge of, I can see a revenge of political clashes rather than just a genuine peace, believing in genuine peace process. This is the first thing. The second thing is on women's rights. Yes, there is more voices now, I agree, more civil society. What is lacking, I think, is the grassroots level involvement. Because I don't feel comfortable when I see a group of only 50 women go to Kabul, Pakistan now, asking that we don't want to go back. That is not a very good, strong message we gave to Taliban. Not only that 50 or 60 women don't want to go back, but millions of women of Afghanistan not only want to go back, but they want to certainly go forward. So I think that we have not been able to bring some level of agreement, consensus, and leave the petty politics or the petty differences aside as women to come to some level of agreement of what we want, basically. And that's why you said it's unstable, there is no sustainability. Sometimes we're strongly against the constitutional amendment, but now we accept that as a reality. But what within constitution. So therefore, I think it is important for us internally to build some level of connections between policymakers, politicians, think tanks, civil society, but grassroots women, and mobilize ourselves, because a divided voice among politicians, among women's rights activists, among women of Afghanistan will only benefit Taliban. This will only benefit Taliban. And you know my position, I'm in political opposition. I'm not in favor of President Ghani's continuation of power, but when it comes to government-led initiative, I believe that the government should actually bring that big coalition. And because otherwise, just to oppose what President Ghani wants, perhaps we will sometimes, it might come to the situation that we will favor Taliban and perhaps prefer them than to Ghani. Therefore, I think it's important that we mobilize as women, we mobilize as politicians. If not, we will be the losers.
Dr. Sarva.
Thank you. Building on what you said, first of all, thank you very much, all three panelists. Excellent discussions. I'm really proud to hear very articulated and very clear discussions and looking at the different aspects of what is at stake. A few notes to add to what Ms. Kofi was mentioning. One is this issue of rural-urban divide, which was also referred to briefly by Dr. Sab Azami and others earlier today. As someone who studied and researched local governance and local, meaning village level interactions and sort of power relations, I strongly disagree that women in the rural Afghanistan are weak. If we put away these degrees that we have and this language that we speak and this level of education that we have, and if we set aside this question of illiteracy, which is a major challenge, I think when it comes to power relations and the level of authority, the level of influence that women have over their male members of the family, that women have over, in terms of women's different ages, is not a new thing, and it's significant in the rural Afghanistan. So not only Taliban, but a lot of non-Taliban men these days are attacking, particularly us, you know, the circles of Afghan women educated, and they attack us because probably we are more active than other segments of civil society right now, because of the threat that we face and also because of the reality that we foresee that would probably completely exclude us. One major thing that sort of this attack is formulating around is, you know, you are the minority, this bunch of, you know, educated, Western educated, donor funded people, and you're going away, your days are numbered. Even like if you look at the Twitter, we get these regular, you know, even threats that your days are sort of numbered. What I'm going to say here is that it's very important to sort of make this very clear that it's not the question of lack of empowerment at the rural communities. It's not even the question of not mobilizing. The disconnect is there. I agree with what earlier was mentioned, that this connection between the circle elites versus the ordinary people is really getting wider and wider. But women in the rural areas, women in the provinces, in the districts and villages, they are strong, they are mobilized, they are very outspoken and articulate about their rights, and we actually have a lot of very strong women leaders that are not only leaders within the women, but they also are, for example, this woman I remember in my research time from Banyan province, from Yakaolang district, she was the representative of 5 villages. And she was the resource bringer for 5 villages in her community in Yakaolang of Banyan. So how can I accept, when I look at her and learn about her story, in the same way in the Pashtun, because they say, oh, the Pashtun women are more deprived. Of course we have isolation, we have victims, we have a significant level of increase in the violence against women cases. That's a bitter reality of not our society, but everywhere else also. But then when it comes to the power of women and their sort of influence and authority, I think it's really important to also address that women are not completely disempowered. And the Taliban are trying to become a little bit now flag holders for rural women, which we have to really be very conscious and challenge it. Another risk that I also sort of foresee is for Taliban to also, because of course I don't know what happened in Moscow, but I heard from Fawzia John can probably say this, but when women asked Taliban representative why there is no women among your group, they said, okay, next time you become our representative. I don't know, Fawzia John, if you were offered, but this is something that some women were offered this kind. So there is this risk, and we are talking about it among women groups and women leaders, that we have to be very conscious that they are always, the same way they are rented men, they are also rented women. And they can definitely go and serve the objectives and the kind of political positionings of women. And we are really hoping that will not happen. But this is also a risk that we will see, because the Taliban mentality is something that is discussed, and I don't want to sort of repeat it, but we have to be very conscious on what is at stake and what we are compromising. Of course, there is no doubt everyone wants peace. But then, I mean, I quote directly women from Uruzgan in the consultation that happened, that we definitely want peace, but not at what price. And the price cannot be decided by one person or one group or one specific political community. Thank you.
And the gentleman in front of you.